Hello, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity that I can speak in front of such prominent audience. Yeah, climate change is a large issue, not just for us climatologists. I come from Slovenia, a small country, from the University of Ljubljana, when I teach climatology as well. So there's practically no doubt that humans are changing the climate by emissions of greenhouse gases, but also, as you will hear later, also other pollutants, like black carbon, for instance. So the last year was the warmest year on the record, but probably it was the warmest year in last 2,000 or 3,000 years. El Niño helped a bit, but actually the year before was also the warmest year, so let's see what 2017 may bring. So we have a lot of indicators that the world is warming. It's not just climatology. It's biology telling us that, for instance, we have different species of animals migrating. The spring is coming earlier. Okay, this was a bit quick. But the most dramatic changes are not in our sight. They're actually happening in Arctic. They're happening in the seas, when not just sea level is increasing and the ice is disappearing on the Arctic, but ocean is warming. Ocean practically takes up the majority of the heat. So we are in the hands of oceans. If oceans say it's enough, we will not store any energy anymore, then climate change will just go wild. And climate change is not an issue of our children or grandchildren, it's our issue, because the first indicators of climate change can be felt by the extreme events, which are getting more frequent all over the world. You can see this data. It's about storms, about floods, droughts, and all this, maybe not directly, but indirectly affects tourism and affects our everyday life. Yeah, we can see the same message in the pictures, and what is in a way special about climate change is these effects are everywhere. They are affecting poor, they are affecting rich, from poles up to the down to the equator. What about the future? Paris Agreement was mentioned. Of course, we have to take action, but Paris Agreement is still on the paper. It's a bunch of very nice wishes. But when the countries were asked what they will do, what are their policies, it turned out that we are not following the 2-degree path at the moment. We are following the path that leads us to the at least 3 degrees warmer world. What is safe? What is safe level of CO2? It's much, much lower. So what my message that I want you to bring home is that 2 degrees is not safe. Politicians say it's safe. It's not safe. So we can see the world is not on track. So what the world is doing now, what the countries are doing now, as I said, we are approaching 2.8 degrees, but probably it will be more if we don't change our energy policy and other policies as well. What is maybe safer is 1 degree margin. But if we continue business as usual, this can be achieved very soon, maybe in less than 10 years. So 2 degrees is not safe, it is problematic. But 4 degrees, it is a disaster. Because 4 degrees globally means for certain regions up to 16 degrees warming. So even if we achieve the goal of 2 degrees, we will have at least 1 billion people living in water stress and a lot of impacts of food productivity and water availability in general. So 2 degrees is proclaimed by politicians that it's safe, not by climatologists. There are huge differences even between 2 degree and 1 degree warming. So it would be much wiser to pursue efforts to limit the temperature to 1.5. And there's a new science emerging, because some people say, well, where's the difference, 2 or 1.5? It is a difference. For some regions, It's a huge difference. But it's a bit complicated table I will show you now, but please look for yourself. For instance, let's just take Mediterranean, a very high touristic destination close by in relatively terms in Europe. So the difference in dryness and in problems of drought, reduction in annual water availability, between 1 degree warming, there will be about 9% of the land very dry. But if we go just half a degree higher, it's already 17%. And if we travel to the coral reefs, who are already dying, if we want to have at least one window of opportunity for corals to survive, we should not go and aim for 2 degrees. That's the message. So we should talk more about 1 degree than 2. Tipping points for not just for tourism, food, water, extreme weather, but I would also like to draw your attention to the health, because humans are vulnerable, and especially if we talk about the poor countries with no good health systems, people will suffer. And of course, this is the displacement of people, which we are seeing already. Some of the refugees coming from Europe, for instance, from Syria, they're not here just because of the war and religion. It's because they're experiencing mega drought for at least 10 years, which affected their food production. So climate change is also a driver, maybe, of the future climate refugees. Tourism will be a victim in a way. There will be direct physical climate impacts, which can be a bit foreseen, but we cannot foresee indirect environmental change impacts. Sooner or later, if the mitigation policy will be there, this means that there will be higher prices maybe on our mobility as a tourists. But also societies will change, because people want to travel to see different cultures. But if these cultures change by climate change, this may not be the best idea then to go there. But this is very hard to foresee, not enough research. We've heard all these days that tourism is becoming greener, more sustainable, like in Slovenia. But our emissions still grow, because we are greener, but more people are coming. And more people are coming from distant destinations. And of course, in every location, you have these luxurious hotels or facilities which are actually increasing energy intensity. So it's sort of a gap between what we wish and the reality. And of course, tourism is also not on the right track, because when you hear us, climatologists, we say that emissions have to decline by 40 to 70%, but when you're talking to the tourism providers or operators, they all talk about growth. Growth, growth, growth. Okay, green growth, but translating that into emissions, by 2050, there will be huge increase in tourism emissions if we don't change the sort of the message that tourism, or the vision of tourism. So this is indirectly opposite direction. What I miss in science is about climate change adaptation in tourism, because it's not just about mitigation, it's not about being more green, but we have to accept the fact that climate is changing. So our infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, should be made much more resilient. Otherwise, we will lose attraction. Winter sports in many places are already in trouble. So, okay, they can produce more artificial snow, but all this adaptation, if we don't do mitigation, will probably be only short-term relief. So please do think about adaptation. Adaptation in every location is different. There's no universal recipe. So in Germany, you have to adapt in a very different way than in Maldives, for instance. So, to wrap up, are we serious about saving the planet? Because we talk about that all the time. But if we talk about saving the planet, we have to also rethink destination management and a lot of other things as well. So the major drivers of saving the world are reduction of resource consumption. It's an optimization of tourist flow, not maximization. But a lot of things will depend on us, because we are now scientists. In next hour, I will be a tourist, because I plan to go to the Berlin to see sightseeing. So behavioral changes has to happen. I don't know who will drive that, probably different sort of educational systems, because tourism of the future should no longer serve human vanity, but human well-being. And also it should be a message that when you're a tourist, you should protect and conserve environment and support local business, create local employment, and to work with communities. So this is a paradigm that is not very well understood by us as a tourists. And I'm naive, maybe you already found out up to now, because I'm climatologist, I'm not coming from business sector, but I think that we have to do some evolution in touristics. If you remember, the first tourists were pilgrims. They were about faith and fulfillment when they travel. And we've done, I hope, over with mass tourism. But to be a tourist of the future, we should sort of become a part of the solution, not the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Lučka. I think I'll have some tough questions for you in a minute, but first we have Mateos. If you would be so kind to show us some of your images. I'm not really sure what's coming up. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Have to find where we are. Yes. This one? Yes, thank you. I will have to speed up a little bit. I have 10 minutes to fly twice around the world. So it's small, it's fragile, one side, but we think it's not. So we think it's infinitive and indestructible. I'm talking about our planet. It's really small in this picture, and astronauts are seeing this kind of vision, and they know what I'm talking about. And this is what we are doing with our planet all the time, every day, every second, every day, every year, all of us. So also in tourism. And these are some facts. So the planet is really getting warmer, as my colleague has discussed just before. And the sea level is going to rise. Someone say maybe 70 centimeters, 1 meter, or doesn't matter, but it's going to rise. Black carbon, which is a kind of cause of global warming, which was not very popular in the past, just in recent years coming on, causing a lot of problem with global warming and global health. So a lot of people are dying every year because we are breathing not so good air. We have not a lot of data about black carbon because nobody is collecting black carbon. So we must first collect, doing researches, and for now, black carbon at about 30% to global warming, besides CO2, which is the biggest problem. So we decided some years ago, in 2012, with our team, Greenlight World Flight team, to fight global warming. So this is a private thing, and we are trying to do something good for our planet, because we know we have tools, we have knowledge, and we have will and responsibility to do something. Black carbon is aerosol. It's a side product of any burning which has carbon inside. And it's not related to CO2 because it's a different story. The beauty of black carbon is that it's very easy to going out of the atmosphere. So the CO2 is the biggest problem because we have no tools, no solutions how to remove it from atmosphere. But black carbon is easy. Just make filters. We know everything about, and we can buy some time to find solutions, to find tools how to fight the CO2. Our tool is very small aircraft. It's ultralight. Its name is Dynamic, and it has beautiful performances. So it's very light. The speed is very fast, 250 kilometers. Range is more than 5,000 kilometers without landing, with one person, one pilot, of course. Autonomy 22 hours, so consumption is very low, and it uses green unleaded fuel. Our second tool is iotalometer. It was made in Slovenia from sightings from the company known Aerosol. And this is a prototype, first prototype in the world, which can be installed in so small aircraft. So this instrument needs air intake. The lower one is the measures the speed of the aircraft altitude. The upper one measures the dirt of our atmosphere. So this was our first flight around the world in 2012 and over North Pole in 2013. So this is a kind of route. I was flying alone, long distance with aircraft, which is able to fly more than 5,000 kilometers. So I was able to fly over all oceans or over all continents, and of course also over the Mount Everest and overhead our top of the world, Arctic, North Pole to Canada. So these are some images I took during my tour. The iotalometer instruments was doing good job because collected the information about black carbon constantly every minute, and every data has GPS location, so we know exactly what is going around the world. And this is the first campaign ever to measure black carbon around the world. Otherwise, we have some missions from NASA. They were measuring how the pollution is coming from Japan, China to US, but that's all, more or less. I'm talking about information about in the atmosphere in high altitudes. So the average altitude I flew was about 2,000 meters, because we wanted to prove that the black carbon is not only a local problem, it's also regional, and it's also global problem. Because we found, this is the top of Mount Everest, and also at that altitude, 9,000 meters, we found some very small, but black carbon is also there. So it's really strange, and it's really have a big impact on the environment all over the world. So this is about Congo River in Africa. You see this black, this is black carbon. Yes, we found also flying from Svalbard to North Pole and to Canada some very polluted points towards flying to North Pole, and we discovered later that the pollution came from Russia and Sweden. Sorry, but it is. The next round the world flight was last year. It was fast one, 28 days only, more or less over the northern hemisphere, and I flew over Pacific, northern Pacific, and to Middle East, and then, as you can see on the picture, anyway. The flight itself was faster because we need to collect a lot of data in short possible time, because we want to build a network of pilots, recreational pilots, which are able to collect almost for free. So we have tools, we have knowledge, we need a network now to collect as much as possible information. So just a few words about green energy. There is no green energy because this is Ivanpah in California, Nevada. It used to be the biggest solar power plant, but actually the story is completely different. It's not that efficient they were talking about. It's not so much energy coming, and the pollution it's causing, it's really, and this is the second green energy. It's not green anymore because you can see it's destroyed the landscape. And if I must decide what is better for me, smelling better or looking to to destroyed landscape, it's difficult to say what is better. So green energy does not exist. Coming back, so we are twice around the world now, and some black carbon scientific research data. Dr. Grisha Mochnik was a head of research, and yeah, these are results. So more black is more dirt. So in dirty places, the people are dying faster, and in dirty places, they have more problem with climate change than in clean area. So this is what we discovered. I will not talk in details because we have no time, but this is North Pole. I was talking about before about two spots towards the North Pole. The North Pole itself was at that time 10 degrees warmer than Svalbard, for example. It's very strange. Something is happening on the poles, and this is causing by human beings like we are all, because our lifestyle is being rich, being big, and we have infinitive, yeah. This is our team, Green Light, World Light team, a team of enthusiasts which are trying to do something good for our future. Also this year, in a couple of days, I will start a fly in Mediterranean. In 2018, Himalaya, impact of black carbon, dirt going into glaciers, causing the fastest melting. Russia, China, unknown places, if you're talking about pollution, South and North Poles again. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Matevž. Lučka, I think we might sit down, even if it's just for few minutes. I have one particularly tough question to you, Lučka. Global emissions per capita at the moment are in the order of 4.5, 4.8 tons of CO2 per year. If we travel long haul by aircraft, if we go on a cruise trip, we can actually contribute to emissions that are as high as the annual average globally, even though we know even that is too high. What does that really mean for tourism and some tourism products?
Yeah, it is a dilemma. It is sort of the no way out as we think like this. But I think that what is hiding behind these numbers is also that we should not accuse all tourists, because as I remember from your research, it's only 3% people who are actually doing the majority of pollution. So 97% of tourism is not so problematic. And from my own experience, I try to calculate my carbon footprint, and it's obvious it's flying. So what I do in my personal life, I sort of started to cut these small vacations. So I prefer going once for a longer time, because per day of my stay, then I reduce my carbon footprint by half. But majority of providers, they do advertising, short breaks, fly there for 2 days, fly next week and there. This is absolutely not sustainable.
Maybe we could ask the audience, how many of you have ever calculated your carbon footprints? Oh, look at that. I'll not ask you for the outcome. We might not want to know. Is there any questions that you would like to ask our two researchers here? There's one over there. Could we have a mic that goes in that direction?
So you just said that you're going on longer trips to reduce your carbon footprint. Do you have other advices like that to give us?
Yeah, it is a lot of things that you can do just by switching, for instance, from plane to train. Because if you travel inside the Europe, which I mostly do, practically it's when you calculate the strike on the airport and the delays, you can come there by train as fast as and also much more relaxed. This is a very simple solution. And also, what I sort of would like to share with young people, when we were young, of course, we spent a lot of our vacation under the tent, and it was fantastic time. But nowadays I see very little young people, relatively, do that camping thing. Camping is also very benign compared to some 5-star hotels or whatever. Yeah, but what I really, what is the solution? I mentioned education. So I know that, I'm surprised that so many of you did calculate your carbon footprint, but I wondered if you did it right. Because did you calculate your shopping as well? No. And things like that. So I think that all parts of the IPCC story, what are the mitigation efforts, can be applied to tourism. Also changing your diets, for instance. If you just omit one day in a week not eating meat, for instance, it's already reducing your carbon footprint. But shopping, I think, about things that we want to have, but we don't need them, it's worse than flying, maybe in women especially.
The difficulty, obviously, is somehow the voluntary change. We have one political party in Germany that became very unpopular for suggesting a veggie day. And the question is, what is the right way then to make people change?
It's about numbers. I still believe that a lot of green movements and persuasion of people was just done by it's better, it's worse, you should. But when you talk about tons, about kilowatt hours, then the people realize what is important to change. Not everything. I mean, it's not important that we change so much the light bulbs in our home. It's much better to switch from big car to small car. But this is not popular because industry wants to grow. They want to make profit. And education and from very early stage. So I think when our generation, maybe it's too late. But educational system are now, should be targeted by tourism workers, by green tourism workers, much more than in present.
Let's put it to a test. How many of you do know how many kilowatt hours of energy you are using per year at home? See, there's fewer than the carbon footprint.
That's my point, because we need numbers, and we are, with our all the possibilities technical that we have, phones, internet, everywhere, it's not hard to find them, but then we can have a scale. Without scale, you put effort maybe in the wrong direction.
We can take one more question from the audience. Right over here, perhaps.
Hi there. I'm a student at the University of Ljubljana, and I was in your class. Just a question. You mentioned about low-cost airlines and how they're offering cheaper flights. These weekend trips are becoming more and more popular. Do you think there's a way that we can reduce this, or is it just through education? For example, could any other techniques be used to dissuade people from taking trips so often?
Yeah, it's again numbers. It's in economy. You're an economist.
Pretending.
Economists, they are very well aware of external costs, but they never calculate them and put them in the price. So I think the good start would be when you fly actually for 10 euros somewhere, that your bill should also have the real price. How much damage you did to the environment, we can express that in euros, dollars, at least to remind you, okay, I was lucky to get this cheap flight, but the damage was done.
In the same way that we have warning labels on cigarette packets.
Exactly the same.
So we would have a role for governance that is very clearly outlined here. And obviously that is something we could spend the rest of the day discussing. Thank you for your attention and for being here. I really hope that you will also stay for the next slot. The next event is about how we make customers choose more sustainable travel products. And I think the panel that we have will provide some very relevant insights into how we actually can make behavior change. Thank you very much, even to our guests, for being here today. Thank you.